What up, what up, what up, what up? It's me, L Teddy 27.
Good as night, right about the hood.
Oh, dear God, I'm already eating and drinking.
Look a damn mess, just a damn mess. No means no, and yes means no.
What up, what up, what up, what up, what up, what up, what up? What's good, people? What is up? What's up, people? What's up? What's good? It's me, L Teddy 27, and I am back for yet another review. This, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be our review for, oh yes, David Makes Man. This is season 2. It is episode 1. It is entitled Barrel of Oranges. So, if you're new to these parts, David Makes Man is our favorite show. Our favorite show. Our favorite show. David Makes Man, yes, that's our favorite show. And so we are so excited for the start of season 2, the much anticipated season 2. A lot of you Johnny come latelys that are here now were not here when season 1 was actually on television. A lot of people caught up on season 1 after the season was over. But I was one of the few that was here reviewing season 1. You can go back and check out my reviews of season 1. I have a whole playlist for David Makes Man, so you can go check out the reviews. I'm going to reference a lot of stuff from previous reviews from last season, so you may want to go check them out. Just a little plug, shameless plug. Anyway, but I'm glad to have you here. Let's talk about this. Let's break this down. Let's dissect. Let's review it, recap, break down, all of that good shit. Because for David Makes Man, it's too good to just do a review and a recap. We got to break some stuff down for you. So we're here to break some stuff down for you. Try to not be as long-winded as I was last season, but whatever. We're here. We're here now. Have a seat. Have something to drink. And have a good time with me. Let's do this. So we start off, and let me say before we begin, there were a lot of parallels from season 1. The writers did a phenomenal job of taking you back to season 1, recollecting on things that happened, helping you remember certain little idiosyncrasies about certain characters and about the show just in general. So they did a phenomenal job of taking you back, but still pushing you forward. Season 2 is set 15 years in the future. They say it's supposed to be 15, but if you recall, during season 1, David was still in 8th grade. Most 8th graders, and David now is supposed to be in his 30s. Most 8th graders are not 15 or 16 years old, and David wasn't either. So I'm going to say 15 plus years in the future is where season 2 starts. So David wakes up. It's 3:28 in the morning. David wakes up. That's the wee hours of the morning, and he's having night sweats. He can't sleep. Probably having nightmares and dreams that are keeping him up. Now, if you know the history of this character, David does have mental issues that he has to work through. He's dealt with a lot of traumas. He's had to grow up quickly, and because of that, that has caused some mental duress, so to speak, and caused him to have still a phenomenally intelligent young man, but it has caused his mental health to take a hit. So he has these little quirks about him and these little and here's that word again, idiosyncrasies about him that you'll notice. If you haven't watched season 1, you'll notice them season 2, and we'll talk about some of those here. Anyway, he wakes up sweating, and the other thing that I want to call your attention to from season 1 is from the very first episode, there's this undertone of water and currents and just water, liquid around David. If you recall season 1, I often talked about this in my reviews, that he was always profusely sweating. Like he was always drenched in sweat, even when other people weren't sweating. I mean, I understand, I'm from Miami. Miami is my home, born and raised. So I know it's hot, you do sweat, but he was like the Whitney Houston type sweating, like profusely sweating. And so you would see there's this undertone of things involving water and or liquid and so forth that you see throughout the series with this character. So David goes, he wakes up, he has to change his sheets, and if you go back, that was one of the first scenes that we saw from season 1. JG wet the bed. David had to get up early in the morning by himself, take the sheets off, clean them to hide the sheets and clean them for later. He actually went and put them in the washing machine. I think that morning before they left for school. So there's this parallel back to season 1 where you're reminded of David doing the same thing, waking up, having to change these sheets and so forth. But we see David goes for a run. Middle of the night, he goes for a run. Now, apparently, that 328 must be a particular time, because the guard at the condo where he stays noted, hey, like clockwork, you're up at the same you're like clockwork every night at the same time. So he must wake up at that time every night to go for this run. Maybe he gets waken up by these night sweats at the same time every night and ends up having to go for a run to get from underneath the sheets or whatever. Um, I'm trying to remember if there was anything that points back to from season one, but I don't remember anything from that 328. Anyway, so this is very common. Like that time must be when he wakes up every morning during these night sweats and nightmares or episodes that he's having during his sleep. I also wanted to note that for those of you familiar with Miami geography, the condo where he stays, I immediately said this looks like a Brickell type condo. Brickell has these condo type high rises that are well to do, very nice, nicely well put together. Where you'll have the security guy at the desk up front and so forth. So and I immediately wrote down this looks like a high rise in Brickell. After he goes for his workout or run or whatnot, he comes home. He takes a shower. He overhears his neighbors banging each other out over there, blowing somebody back out, and he calls out creep. And I immediately says, is he calling himself a creep for listening in on this, or is he talking about the guy who's blowing some lady's back out? I felt like he was talking about himself in third person, but neither here nor there. The morning comes. He gets dressed, gets on the metro rail, and goes to work on the metro rail. He gets a text while he's on the metro rail from his boo thing, his bust down. Her name is Nicole, and she invites him out to go. She invites him out to go for yoga. She also says that the security guy. She talked to the security guy, and the security guy saw him. So what that told me is, if the security guy knows that this is David's routine every night like clockwork, and she's saying that the security guy saw him, that means that goes to tell me that she's not used to his daily routine. She doesn't know that this is a nightly occurrence. Otherwise, she wouldn't be, saying, "Oh, security guy says he saw you." Anyway, I don't know if she's spying on him or if they just did that to just tell us that she's not familiar with his normal routine. Anyway, she invites him for yoga. He says sure to go out and do some yoga later. He says sure. While he's on the metro rail, this police officer comes through the door of the train cart that he's in and bumps him. And the police officer is kind of like, "You're not going to say excuse me or whatever." And David doesn't even acknowledge the police officer. Now we find out that the police officer is JG, and JG doing this whole thing where he's acting like they don't know each other. And let me say this about Kwame Patterson. Kwame Patterson is the character that's playing old adult David. I see that he went a long way to um, try to take on the mannerisms of young David. The whole, take the strap to your book bag thing, the whole smile thing. Like the writers and even Kwame went out of his way to, because if you don't know Kwame Patterson has been an actor for a long time. If you go back, he actually goes way back to The Wire. But anyway, you see him take on all of those mannerisms of young David, just mirroring young David and how he used to go to school and so forth. It was so fun and cute to watch. And it was so fun and cute to watch. And then that damn book bag. I know one of my fellow reviewers, Really BTV, she's probably, shout out to her. Y'all go subscribe to her. She's probably going to talk about the book bag because that was a big thing from season one. She was like, "Why does he always have on this book bag?" And I had to school her on. That's a typical Miami young boy thing. Well, Miami boys, they have book bags, and the book bag becomes a part of their body. David still has this book bag in his 30s, still has this book bag that he will not let go of. I still have a book bag to this day, and it's so funny because when me and Really B were hanging, me and Really BTV were hanging out. When we first met, I had on a book bag, and that's just a Miami thing. I don't know. There's something we do in Miami. Anyway, so JG does this thing. They end up getting off the metro rail train, and they're on the sidewalk, and they get into this argument where they was like, "You need to just stop playing, you always want," and JG was like, "You act like you can't walk with your brother," and stuff like that. They're having this whole back and forth because JG just wants to hang out with his big brother. And if you go back to season one, JG just wanted to hang with David. JG looked up to his big brother, David. He wanted to be kind of like David. JG was still this when he was young. He was still kind of a thug, but you could tell he loved his big brother. And so they had this back and forth because David is always serious, just like back when they were young. David is always serious, serious, serious. JG is always joking and playing around and so forth. And it just took you all the way back to when they were young, back in the Ville in season 1. And David was the same way. He was serious. He was like, JG, you got to act like you can't be doing this, back then. And JG would just laugh it off and just be joking. And the same thing is happening now with them being adults. I love the parallel. I love the parallel. Anyway, so they get into this argument. JG is in full police uniform. A cop car passed by with two white, look to be white or white presenting cops. Could have been Hispanic. Either way, the white presenting Hispanics down in Miami are just as racist as the white cops, because they're usually Cubans that are white presenting, and they are very racist toward black people. And there was this whole moment that I thought we was going to have, but JG kind of dispelled it, said, because they said, "Officer, are you good?" And he was like, "Nah, I'm good. This is my brother." And so we have that thing. And so JG turns around. He said, "I'm gonna tell Mom you out here cussing and probably just a whole you." It took us back to why we love JG. If you remember season 1, you couldn't help but love JG. His whole aura was infectious, and so you go back and you go, God, we did. You just take him all the way back. I love JG's character, even though he was a little bad behind. He was so bad. He was one of those kids that was just always into something, but you couldn't help but love his whole, his whole personality. And it's the same way. So he gets on the phone, you see, and so they do this little back and forth, this cutaway where you see his little JG in the cop uniform calling him mom, and then they cut away to his adult JG on the cop phone calling the mom saying, "Ma, JG, I mean David out here cussing." Real life, it just took me. It was so great. I loved seeing it. Love seeing it. So I also wanted to know, if you look at the newspaper that David is holding, it confirms this is Brickell, because you can see it says BRIC and cuts off the K, but it's the Brickell area. So I did want to, I wrote that down, that it was confirmed that it was Brickell, because that's what I told y'all, that's what I thought in the beginning. So in Brickell, if you don't know Miami topography, Brickell is around the downtown area, but just outside of downtown, like a little bit. It's like right on downtown. It's still, to me, it's still downtown, but it's right there. And it's a residential area. You gotta have money to stay in Brickell. Let's be clear. Right there, like you literally are across the street from downtown Miami. And he got off at Government Center, which would make sense. Like Brickell, I think, is the next stop from Government Center. Like it's one stop away from Government Center. Government Center is like one of the biggest train stations on the Metro Rail. That's where everything is. That's the middle of the heart of downtown Miami. So makes sense. On his way into the office, David went back to old school, young David. If you remember when David would leave the Ville and go to his magnet school, he would put on his hat, he would, strap up his book bag like that, throw on his smile, flash that smile, and go into work as almost like a code switching type thing, where he would just, take off all of this stuff from home life and put on, what he needed to do to be about the business of work, whether it was school back when he was young or now work. Now, when he got into this, into his office building, he had a back and forth with the cop, but that's not what I paid attention to. What I paid, because the cop told him that there was some important people that I didn't pay attention to that. What I paid attention to was the guy who he works with, his coworker, who's, I guess, the boss's son, who owns the firm or whatever he works at. He calls David DJ, and if you go back to season 1, DJ is the nickname that David gave the kids at school, because he wanted to separate himself from the hood, which was the Ville. And so I found it so funny that this guy, his name is Jesse, calls him DJ. And it took me back to when Saren and Marissa would call David DJ. And the people around the neighborhood, when they finally met them, they would be like, "Who? DJ? Who was that? You mean Day?" And so that's where I found that to be. And so for you, if you didn't watch season 1, that's another parallel from season 1. We also talked in my review in season 1 of why he thought it important to switch his name. We went into a long diatribe about that. I'm not going to do that now, but you can go and watch my reviews. Shameless plug again. Anyway, so we see David gets a surprise from his co-worker, Jesse. He thought that he was going to be there and they were going to go through their whole pitch for this redevelopment plan down in the Ville, and he thought about going to, giving them that information and so forth to do this big mall down there, tear down the area down there where the Ville is in Homestead and build this big mall. And so he was like, well, it's not just going to be in office. The actual investor that we're looking to pitch this to is actually here. He came and wants to see it. So the investor's name is Joe Padilla, and he brought his nephew and Elon and some other people. Now that name Joe Padilla, I can't put my finger on it, but that last name Padilla, it really I'm gonna have to go look it up, and I probably should have. But that name really rings a bell for me growing up in Miami. Like I vividly remember that last name for some reason. I'm not sure if it was in politics. I'm not sure if they were a wealthy business owner, but that last name vividly rings in my head for Miami. Anyway, David is giving his pitch, and he's sensing it's not going well. And a lot of times you would see in season one when David would get all cerebral and heady, and he would just go into his own head. You would hear this feedback type noise, and you're seeing that again here in episode one, where when you hear this like feedback type pitch or noise, that's David going into his brain and getting all cerebral with himself. So he senses that it's not going well, because he starts his pitch giving a brief history of Miami with Julia Tuttle sending a barrel of oranges to Henry Flagler, and getting Henry Flagler to get his railroad to be moved down to Miami. I could give you a whole history lesson on Miami. Maybe one day I will. Anyway, and if you go to Miami, Julia Tuttle Causeway, which is one of the causeways that you use to get over to Miami Beach, is still there today. And Henry Flagler Street is one of the main. It's actually the thoroughfare, the main street that separates. It goes east to west, and it separates North Miami, north part of the county from the south part of the country in terms of addresses and things. It separates the north from the south. Anyway, a little bit about Miami. So David calls an audible. He tells the secretary lady who's dictating notes and transcribing and recording and stuff, stop the recording. Well, he tells her right that David gave a joke, blah 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 blah. Stop the recording. And she was like, well, we don't do. He was like, no, I'm calling an audible. I need, because he sensed that things were not going well. So he tells everybody to leave. I need everybody to leave, and I need to talk to Miss Padilla by himself. So everybody leaves except for David's coworker Jesse and Padilla's nephew Elon. And so Padilla tells his nephew, hey, let me talk to him by myself. Jesse stays in the room. So he presents Padilla with this plan where initially they were going to sell to the county commission that they were going to build this big mall down there. And the county commission would get all over it. They would deny it. They would say no. They would get news involved. They would get the state involved. They would get all eyes on it to get a no for the mall. And at the moment where all eyes were on this new project, they would pivot and switch it to creating residential condos there and redeveloping this area that had become run down. And also, and here's the part that you might have missed. Part of it was David mentioned that those commissioners would be paying attention to the fact that you looked like you were a voice of the people. You looked like you were doing what the people wanted, which is to redevelop, housing and residential areas and have a place for people to grow. Where in that, really what you were doing was you were moving people out of that area because who couldn't afford it, and the new developments that you were going to put there would have ended up being too pricey or out of the price range of the people who live there, and now they have to disperse and go to other areas, and now you can bring in well-to-do people down there. That was the little caveat that he put in there, that he told Padilla that he knew that the commissioners would overlook. So I wrote in my notes that the writers, and Terrell Alvin McCraney, the executive producer and creator of the show, is from Miami-Dade County. He's from southern part of Miami-Dade County, which is where the Ville is set. Anyway, so he's familiar with gentrification that happened in Miami. And this describes a lot of the gentrification that happened in Miami, the exact same thing. They would try to pitch some commercial that wouldn't go, and so they would pitch new residential areas, move all of the people out of the residential area to redevelop it, send those people, and most of them did move down south to Homestead and Naranja and Florida City down there where the Ville is set. And what would happen is they would build new residential developments, and the people that originally stayed there could not afford it and never moved back. So it's a gentrification. I mean, that's the real story of Miami. Anyway, if you look at before there was even before there was Julia Tuttle and Henry Flagler who stole property and land from the Bahamians that moved over. The older history of Miami goes back to the Seminole Indians, and if you know history, America had two war. I know they had at least two wars with the Seminole Indian tribe. And the first war of the Seminole Indian tribe, Chief Osceola and his Indians at his command, they fought against Major Francis L. Dade. And Major Francis L. Dade was a major in the U.S. Army, and he got defeated. The Seminole Indians, because what had happened was some American, well, not all of America, but they had people that started to move into uh, areas around the Miami River area and Key Biscayne, and they would use that part area that they moved in right on the water to warn ships about what was coming or to give information to ships that were out, sailing past that way because the jet stream comes right by there, and that's probably one of the closest places to American soil that the jet stream comes to that area. So they had some people in America, some Americans that settled there, and Chief Osceola them stayed in a little more inside of Dayton County, which is more toward the Everglades. Long story short, they want America tried to overthrow the take the Indians land and send them to Oklahoma like they did the rest of the Indians. And Chief Osceola and the Seminole Indians were like, "Nah, we ain't doing that." They also wanted to overthrow the Seminole Indians because the Seminole Indians were darker skinned Indians, and they were known for hiding black people within their tribe, slaves that had escaped in their tribes. Anyway, Chief Osceola defeated Francis Dade, and after their death, when Florida commissioned this new county down there, they named it after Dade. So before it was Miami-Dade County, it was just Dade County, named after Francis Dade, who was defeated by the Seminole Indians back there when they tried to steal the people's land. So they've been stealing people's land. America's been stealing people's land for years down in Miami-Dade County. A little lesson on Miami gentrification. Anyway, just a little breakdown, just a little there. And so eventually the Second War came, and America against the Seminole Indians, and America was a lot more prepared, and they defeated the Seminole Indians then. But the Seminole Indian tribes still has reservations in Miami-Dade County to this day. To this day. Anyway, David, back to our regularly scheduled programming. David knew that Joe Padilla wanted to be strong mayor of Miami-Dade County. In Miami-Dade County, for those people not aware, each city has a mayor, but we also have a mayor for the whole county in Miami-Dade County, and so that is called the strong mayor. Anyway, and so he pitched it to him, and he took the bait. After the meeting, when Padilla says, "I'll meet with you, David, later," Jesse, David's co-worker, was told him that, hey, they talked about what this could do for their career. David says, hey, I took a risk, but hey, it'll be good in the long run. So Jesse says, I gave him your personal cell phone number. David goes off, has a whole meltdown, jacks up Jesse, throws him against the wall, and kind of chokes him out a little bit. However, for those of you new to David Makes Man, this is one of those instances where that didn't really happen. We have this a lot on this show, where what you think happened or what you see happen is not actually what happened, and they'll show you the scene again with what really happened, and that's what we saw here. We then saw David simply say, "No problem, I'm okay with that." We also find out that David wants part of this campaign. He wants some parts of Padilla's campaign. So David has aspirations for politics, as you can see. So, but yeah, you'll learn that in David Makes Man. Never trust what you see. It might not be wrong. I mean, it might not be right. Anyway, David goes, and we see him. He leaves. He has his book bag, and in the book bag he has these sheets. The sheets from that he sweated out, and he went and washed them and everything. You see him wiping his hands down and wiping the sheets down or whatever. So he goes to his mom's house. Gloria is his mom. We call her Glow. Glow runs this home for LGBTQIA plus youth, where she has foster kids that are LGBTQIA plus. And on his way in, we see that David had to break his appointment with Nicole, his little boo thing bust down, because he got caught up with work and he went to go see his mom. JG is there, being typical JG. JG he just plays around. He plays around. David is serious. JG is playful, and they're the yin to each other's yang, and so forth. Um, we also learned when JG was talking to his bust down, he's fully aware that what he's about to do isn't going to go over well with the people who live in the Ville or his family who's from the Ville. So um, we then see JG's daughter Trinice. They call her Tren, and Tren is pretty little dark skinned girl. Um, she's not doing good in math in school. She's getting C's. C's that Gloria's out there telling JG that he need to do better, helping her study for her math and stuff. So we see this back and forth, David and JG. They still playing around doing like the typical David JG stuff. Glow over there telling them, leave your brother alone, be nice to your brother, go do this, do that. It took us all the way back to season one. Just typical mom and her two playful little boys, even though they're all grown up now. So we meet this. David gives Glow the sheets and so forth for her to use for one of the rooms there. We meet this lady named Robin. Now we haven't been fully introduced to Robin, but the house where Glow stays is called Robin's Nest. I'm not sure yet, and maybe I missed it. If I did, y'all put it in the comment section. I think Robin is either Glow's girlfriend or just a friend of Glow's, or Glow's friend girl. I don't know. But they appear to live together because Robin let out that they were thinking about moving this foster home that they have to Port St. Lucie area, Port St. Lucie area, which is north of Broward, north of Palm Beach County. You got Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County. Just above there is Port St. Lucie, Fort Pierce area. And so they were alluding to moving there because it's not as big and it is not as busy as Miami. And it's easier to they believe it's easier to facilitate having this home there for these kids. And so I'm curious to see, because we know from season one that that Glow used to hang out with Miss Elijah a lot. They used to go out, go to clubs and stuff like that. So that alludes to perhaps Glow being a lesbian or whatnot. We'll find out who Robin is. Anyway, JG tells David, I'm going to the Ville. You want to come? David says no. So then we see JG at the Ville. JG goes to drop off groceries to Miss Elijah. Now, when I say Miss Elijah, it's not MS. It's MX as an X-ray. So don't think that it's MS Elijah. It's MX. And if you know anything about pronouns and so forth, pronouns and salutations and so forth, MX is what you use for someone who considers themselves non-binary. Instead of using Mr. or Ms., they use MX. Okay, and that's why they say Mix Elijah. It's actually Mix Elijah, but it sounds like Miss Elijah. So Miss Elijah is non-binary. So we see Miss Elijah. JG drops off grocery. Now, if you go back to season one, also remember I talked about this in a review as well. Unlike David so much, who kind of sometimes seemed uncomfortable around Miss Elijah, JG loved Miss Elijah. JG loved going to Miss Elijah's house, hung out with Miss Elijah, had no problem with Miss Elijah. For JG to be the thug that he was very cool, comfortable, loved him some Miss Elijah. And I love that we still see this with JG. He there dropping off groceries to Miss Elijah, won't take no money from Miss Elijah, and so forth. And but Miss Elijah looks like she's on that strap. Miss Elijah looks like she ain't aging well, or she's on that shit. And so JG, she calls JG David at one point, and JG has to, check her and say no. She's like, I know who you is, Gloria's boy, Jonathan Gregg, and so forth. She keeps telling him to go downstairs and talk to kids about the birds and the bees or something like that. So he goes downstairs, knocks on the door. It's Shella. Shella grew up in the Ville with them too, and Shella, she is downstairs. Apparently, she got some little website where she gives women advice on what to do with the cooch, the box, or whatever. So JG, giving jokes and whatnot, this, that, and the third. So they look to the side, and there's some dudes that like they over on the side of the building fighting. JG is there. He's not in full uniform, but he still has his badge on his belt. And he goes over there and breaks up the fight. And in the midst of breaking up the fight, one of the guys pulls out a gun and shoots JG. And I'm like, y'all gonna do this to me first episode. Just first episode, y'all just gonna take me out like this, right? Y'all just gonna take me all the way out like this. First episode, y'all just with reckless abandon. Just don't care about me, right? That's what we do. Anyway, y'all know I've been going on and on and on about how we love JG, and they just gonna take me out and shoot JG first episode. Child, God. Jesus. Oh Lord Jesus. Anyway, get to the hospital. So we see David and Trinice sitting down in the waiting area. And we have another parallel from episode 1, season 1. If you remember season 1, episode 1, when David and Saren had the big fight in the middle of episode 1, they're sitting outside in the hallway outside the principal's office, and they got space in between them. And on the wall, they don't talk. There's just writings. They're speaking. There's this muted conversation that's all writing on the wall, and you see writing just being written out. No words being spoken, but they understand. They're communicating with each other through these writings telepathically. And not JG Lord, David did this often not often, but a few times during season 1. Every time he did it, though, it was with Saren. And I noted to myself, Saren was someone who, like David, was dealing with a lot of childhood trauma, childhood traumas that he was trying to deal with and overcome and deal with. And Saren was the only one you saw David communicate with like this. And so David and Trinice, JG's daughter, are sitting there, and they have the same type of muted conversation where everything's written out and they're communicating telepathically. And they, of course, both of them are, besides themselves, worried about whether or not JG is alive. And at one point, David says to her, "Why can't I say this out loud?" And they're still writing it out. Why don't I just talk? He says, "Why don't we talk?" To her, "Why don't we talk?" And she breaks the silence and says, "Because we're weird," out loud. Love this part. And if you go back and watch nothing from season 1, go back and watch this scene between David and Saren in the middle of that hallway. One of the most powerful scenes that we saw last season. And every time we see these muted conversations, there's always something very powerful or very profound that comes from that scene. And it becomes very important. It doesn't happen very often, but every time it does happen, it's extremely powerful, extremely important. So we see JG's wife, Trisha, and Glow. They come out and they update them on what's going on with JG. He got shot. They don't. He's not dead. He's in ICU. They don't think the bullet hit any vital organs, but he does have some internal bleeding. So Glow gets a call and goes to the side. I believe she got a call from Robin, but I'm not sure. They didn't tell us who was on the phone. Maybe I missed that. After Glow gets off the phone, David has this back and forth with his mom, and he just telling her, is this good for you? Boredom and chaos, basically alluding to, baby, you about to have idle hands, and I don't need you to get strung out on that stuff no more like you used to be. And Glow checks him and says, "Boo, I've been sober for 15 years. I haven't been on drugs for 15 years." And she said, I ain't gonna keep apologizing. I know what I did to you and your brother. I know how I wasn't there. And I'm still beating myself up about it, but I'm not gonna fall back and become a whole ass crackhead again. Anyway, so Gloria goes off on David. She said, "Listen, all of us has changed. I've changed. Your brother's changed. Everybody's changed but you, David." And we see that old David is doing and saying, acting, and I talked about that early on this review. He's having the same mannerism, the same everything like young David. And so she tells him, "Go home, find some calm." And if you remember last season, whenever they would say, "Go find some calm," that was code language for go get some. Go, have some sex. Remember that was the whole thing with Rainen and Shinobi. Rainen would tell Shinobi, "Go find some calm." Shinobi would go on in there to Miss Elijah and go have Miss Elijah give him some sloppy toppy or whatnot. And so go find some calm was code language for, go, get some. And it's sex. Anyway, so David, on his way out of the hospital, he picks up his book bag. Actually, when he sits down first, he sees young JG in the hallway. And then he tries to, shake it off, puts on his book bag and leaves. On his way out, he turns another hallway. He sees young JG again, and he screams out, "Go back." Now, I immediately wrote to myself, is he seeing JG now the same way he saw Sky? Does this mean that JG is either dying or is either dead or on the verge of dying? Because he saw Sky after Sky was dead, or Sky's spirit or Sky's essence last season when Sky after Sky was dead, and is the same thing now happening with JG, with him seeing this young JG? Is that JG's spirit or essence now because JG is dying or is dead? I asked myself that. I wrote that down. We'll see. But he definitely yells, "Go back!" And everybody in the hospital hallway looks like it's nobody there. Who are you yelling at? Same way it was when he was having these episodes with Sky. But and I said, is he saying go back as in spirit, go back into JG's body? I'm not ready for you to be dead. Go back. And it that's kind of what I got from that. Y'all let me know what y'all think. So David goes to find him some calm with Nicole. Next thing you know, we see he busting her box and beating her box, breaking her back out, telling her he gonna do it right. Now it didn't look too rough. He talked about you want it rough, and they went but doggy style, but it didn't really look rough to me. I'm just saying. They talked afterwards, and he had to bust her down with no sheets on the bed. You know, you a real bust down if they bring you over their house, and y'all get you he busting you down, and ain't no sheets on the bed. That tells you how much you worry. Anyway, we find out that him and Nicole have this open relationship, and Nicole thinks he's seeing other chicks, and he's like, no. She was like, if you are, it's okay because we're open relationship until we decide it's not. I love the line when she says, "My breath tastes like dick." I'm like, how many times have people said that to themselves? Maybe not out loud, but the fact that she said it out loud right in front of him after kissing him was so funny to me. Anyway, Nicole leaves and David calls Glow, his mom. He calls Glow, and Glow said, "We don't have no updates on your brother yet. She don't have no updates on JG yet." And he tries to apologize to her for alluding to her having a relapse on drugs, but she had already hung up. So then we see David wakes up once again in the middle of the night. 3:28 is on the clock, like clockwork again. And Padilla calls him in to talk to him. At this ungodly hour, dear God. And Padilla admits that he does want to be mayor, and they have this long, drawn-out conversation about Padilla wanting to be mayor. And Padilla talked about wanting to bring businesses to Miami, but wanting them to have roots, the business owners in Miami to have roots in Miami, not just to have them have businesses in Miami and look at Miami as a place to party, but having these people have roots in Miami and changing the demographics of the county. And if you know, mayors over the last 10 years or so in Miami, that's exactly what they've been trying to do. Have business owners and people not just come and party there, but they have roots there, which is why they're building these residential condos in areas like Brickell, in places in downtown Miami and just outside of downtown Miami. You see them developing the Overtown section, which is just outside of Miami to the north side. I talked about Brickell being to the south side. Overtown is to the north side. And them pushing those people out of that area because it's a rundown area. And so this has been going on in Miami, perpetually almost. But he tells David, listen, if this all comes to fruition and I do become mayor, you're gonna have to resign from Edwards firm, the Edwards firm. And he was like, why? He was like, because I'm gonna make you county executive. And county executive is the same thing like a city manager, but it's on the county level. And they shake on it and everything. And on his way out, David is asked by Padilla, hey, I heard about a shooting of a police officer in that area of the Ville. Is that gonna do anything to stop what we're planning on doing? And David thinks and says, no. And what that said to me was, David's about to do a lot. He's just made a deal with the devil. He's about to do a lot of stuff that's going to hurt a lot of people he loves, his friends, family, people he grew up with. He's about to do a lot of things that's going to go against and hurt those people. And so, he just made his deal with the devil. And so it ends with David going home and he sees little JG again. He's having the little JG visions, and he just has this whole breakdown. And I think that what he's believing is what I said earlier, that this is a situation like Sky, because if you remember, David watched Sky die, and that was traumatic for him. And he was having these mental episodes because of it. And now, once again, he's having mental episodes because of his brother. And he has this whole breakdown where he starts screaming and crying and things like that. And it goes on from there. Phenomenal first episode for me. I loved it. Applause. I loved the first episode. I love that there was a nod to season one. They helped you recollect back to season one, but they still pushed you forward. And I like seeing what's the storylines that are being built, I should say, before. I'm very interested in this relationship with his niece, Trinice. I'm very interested in who Robin is and her relationship with Glow. What has happened to Miss Elijah? I need to find that out. The other thing that I'm going to say is, Y'all have until episode 3 to give me my Saren. Writers, I know y'all already wrote it. It's too late now, but I need Saren. I forgot to talk about the fact that Glow opened that home for the LGBTQIA plus youth to be foster kids because of Saren, and Saren having to run away or get away because of what he was dealing with in his home. Anyway, y'all got into episode 3 to give me Saren. After that, every episode I'm going to be asking, where's Saren? Where's Saren? Where's Saren? Because I love Saren and Saren's character. I need Saren in my life. That is my review, breakdown, recap. Y'all, let's get in the comment section and do what we do. Let's argue about what we saw. I'm so excited on your thoughts on the episode. Let's do what we do. Until next week, that's all I got for y'all. Thank y'all for coming. Y'all drive safely. We out.